Welcome. This is Caitlin from Photo Shelter. I'm the community marketing manager here. We have Jeremy, who's our rock star of all things social media. And then we have the amazing Lola Akinmade Åkerström, who is just a fantastic travel photographer who has all sorts of tips today that we will go through. Just so you're all aware, this is actually from a course that she has. So this is really just a very small slice of what she has to offer, and she can probably talk a little bit more about the course at the very end. So let's get started. Just to kind of give you some background on Lola, she's an award-winning author and travel photographer. She's been all over the place, traveling, but also has been a contributing photographer at National Geographic Traveler in the UK. She has, won, I think, countless awards, but the 2018 Bill Mustard Travel Photographer of the Year Award. And, she is represented by National Geographic Image Collection. She's a contributing writer and photographer at adventure.com and a few other places that she'll probably reference throughout the presentation. So I'm going to hand the reins over to Lola. She's got a ton of really great materials to share with you, and then Jeremy will kind of chime in throughout the presentation with any questions. So Lola, you're all set.
All right, thank you so much. And you guys, thank you so much for dialing in from all over the world. It's gonna be exciting, right? So I've got this presentation that I'm dividing into two parts. I'm going to talk to you about how to sell your travel photographs, but selling your photos and preparing them for sale equally important. So the first part of this presentation is going to focus on how you prepare your photos for sale, how you present them for sale before we then get into the actual selling. Because a lot of us photographers are terrible at self-assessing if our photos are actually sellable. Even if we are amazing photographers, are our photos actually sellable? So, preparation and portfolio. So as travel photographers, one of the joys of our work is that we capture a sense of place, right? We travel the world, we capture a sense of place through our images. And within that field, we all have kind of our own specialties, right? So there are landscape photographers, there are street photographers, there are those like me that love portraits. And even the most experienced travel photographers, what happens is over time, you have just a specific type of imagery that makes up the bulk of your archives, right? So if you're a landscape photographer, most of your images are landscape photographs. Even though that's great, what happens is it can make your collection of work trickier to sell. Because what? As travel photographers, we need to capture a sense of place. And I'll give you an example. I love photographing people. That's my specialty when I travel. But when you look at this gallery from Mauritius, you can see I also shoot, I've got an adventure gallery, beach, chefs, culture, food, golf. I don't play golf. I don't like golf, but I still have a golf gallery. Icons, markets, because how you sell your photos isn't just one random epic shot. How you can sell your photo is if you start coming back with cohesive stories from a place. That's how you start making your work sellable. It's very difficult to just sell. It's difficult to just sell one photo, and it's easier to actually sell a collection of photos that tell the story of a place. So, give you an example. Start thinking beyond kind of that single epic shot, because as landscape photographers, that's what we think about. We want that great epic shot. But then it's difficult to sell the one epic shot. But if I have a collection of different images, even though it's not my strength, but from the location, then those are easier to sell alongside my epic shot. My epic shot becomes the opening image for that collection. So what you want to start doing is thinking about just that single epic shot into collections of memorable photos to tell the story of a place. And this part of the presentation is focusing on how to prepare your portfolio before we get into selling, because this is equally as important. So this is an example. When you Google the Faroe Islands, this is one of the images that comes up. It's very iconic. Most travel photographers that have gone to the Faroe Islands, they have their own version of this epic Mullasafor waterfalls in the Faroe Islands. It's an epic shot, yes, but it's not unique. Now, if you compare that to, see, just waiting for it to click over here. Yeah, I'm just waiting to try and get my mouse function back.
All right,
so I can
here.
click.
Let's
Yeah.
see. Does that work for you now, Lola?
Yes, yeah. So let me see if it's working again. Let me see. Yeah. So it disappeared for a while. Okay, but if you think about this, for the Faroe Islands, now this is a more memorable shot from the Faroe Islands. It's not unique. I'm sorry, it's not, it may not be epic, but it's a memorable shot. And so if I'm trying to sell photos from the Faroe Islands, having this collection of more memorable shots away from that epic kind of iconic shot increases my chance of selling this photo as well. So, and then thinking about horizontal versus vertical, even if I am a landscape photographer and I have my own composition style, when I shoot my images, am I actually making them sellable? Am I creating enough a negative space around it? Am I giving whoever wants to buy it enough options, right? And in addition to that, am I also, sorry, let me just go. Am I also creating a vertical version of the same scene? So again, it's not about just taking that shot in front of you and composing it the way you want. It's about also thinking about, what if I want to sell what I'm looking at? What can I do to prepare? And so it's creating enough negative space around the images, shooting a vertical option around it, creating more options for the same scene. And so this is an example with just vertical shots. Sometimes when shooting the vertical, sometimes you have to throw away some of the composition rules when you think of, a rule of thirds, because you want the object you're shooting to be centered so that there's enough space for whoever is going to buy the image to create and use. Yes, you can create a version of those images that are composed perfectly, but then you have to create what I call the sellable version of the image. Hope you guys are with me. So, what about your visual style? As you start preparing your photos for sale, what about your visual style? So this is one account on Instagram that always cracks me up, because we all think we have that unique vantage point. Our photos are epic, but this account says, no, you're not that unique. There are many people like you, and it's easy to find that image and that style, right? And so what you want to do as a photographer is start creating your own visual voice before you sell it. And I'll tell you why, as I go through. So this is what I call my own personal visual voice. I am a self-taught travel photographer. Before I became a travel photographer, I used to be an oil painter. And so you can see that in my own visual style. I am very heavy-handed with the saturation. Many people don't like it, many people do, whatever. I love contrast as well, but that's part of my own visual voice. And so as travel photographers, what you want to do is start creating your own visual voice. These are some of my favorite travel photographers. Mitchell, one of my favorites. I love what he does with natural light, especially low light. I can tell his own image. I can spot it from a mile away. That's his style. Another photographer I love is Lily Germer. It's like joy, just exploding. But you can see that there is a visual style when you put their photos together. Another one is Sivan Askayo. As well, you can see there's a visual style when you put those images together. And the reason this is all important is having that clear voice in your imagery when you put them together allows the clients or the potential buyers of your work to immediately see what you're selling and why they should buy from you, right? So that's the key of that visual voice. So that kind of first part of my presentation is about preparing your work, kind of doing that self-assessment, seeing if what I have in my archives are actually sellable, right? They may be beautiful images, but maybe people can't use them because of the way they've been cropped or they've been created, and I've had that happen. This comes from personal experience. I've actually had photo editors in the past saying, oh my goodness, I love this image, but I wish you had a lot more negative space because I can't use it, right? So now I'm going to talk about the portfolio section, how you kind of prepare all that, your portfolio to present to the world before you then sell it. So this is the landing page of my photo shelter image bank. And one thing I've said over the years, just having a website that just showcases a few photos as your style hasn't been enough for me to sell my work. This creating an image bank, which is an online archive, searchable archive of your photos, is how I've actually been able to sell my work over the last few years. So not just having a website that says, these are just a few of my styles, but actually having that online searchable archive. And I'll tell you why that's important. So my portfolio as an image bank, how this has helped me get work is most people don't know who you are as a travel photographer. So they may not know where your site is or who you are, but through Google, they can actually go directly to your image bank. And then from your image bank, get in touch with you to buy your images. And then once they come to you, you can actually quickly create tailored galleries for an editor. It makes you look more professional. So instead of trying to upload and WeTransfer things, you actually just create a quick gallery, add a few photos online, and say, look, this is custom made, baked just for you, right? In less than 5 minutes. It just makes life easier for you and whoever is trying to buy your work when they approach you. So this is an example from Google. If you do a search for Yokmok reindeer, most people don't know who I am or that I've been there or that I have those images, but by doing that search, they go directly to my photo shelter image bank and then get in touch with me. I mean, this is how, I'll say as recently as 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, National Geographic Traveler, Netherlands, that's how they found my work on Aruba. So they got in touch through my image bank. So this works, I know, based on experience. So, yeah, so I'm gonna just take a quick pause. So that's the first part of the presentation, talking about how you properly prepare your photos to make sure they're sellable and then presenting them. So if you guys have any questions, I'll take a few minutes to take those before I go into part 2, actually selling.
Jeremy, do we have any great questions from the audience already?
Yeah, so there's one that comes up a bunch throughout our webinars that I think is interesting, and I would love to hear your thoughts, Lola. When you're taking travel photos and you have people in your images, what's your approach to like model releases, especially if you're planning on sending to publications and such?
Correct. So if for model releases, if the editorial context, so if I'm going to publish that just in an editorial context, I don't need a model release. And I have to publish that photo in the context of what I was taking it as. So for example, if I went to Jokkmokk, Sweden, which is, like an indigenous market, and I'm writing a story or photographing a story, that's the story I can use that image within without a model release on an editorial context. Now, if I want to sell somebody's photo from that kind of context, in a commercial way, then I would need a model release. I would need to get it from them in person or try and get in touch with them. And an app called Easy Release is a great one because people don't like signing stuff. But also, you need to be sensitive. That is not something I'm going to sell in a commercial way. Because when you sell somebody's photo commercially that way, then you're thinking stock images, or then they're going to be used to be promoted to promote another product that has nothing to do with that context. So I am very sensitive in terms of what kinds of photos of people I sell editorially and commercially. So that's not something I would do. Like if I went to that kind of environment, I wouldn't sell that in a commercial context. But if it's like a market, again, I try not to sell people in that commercial context. If it's stock imagery, then I work in a different way for that. So I don't know if that answers your question.
I think so.
Yeah.
Let's ask one more before you jump into section 2 here. Let's see. We have a couple coming through, but I want to make sure we ask one more. Do you have any like suggestions for how many photos, or like how, I know you're talking about having a variety and some not just one epic shot. Do you have any suggestions on how many or like what types of photos you should have on your portfolio for a publication to kind of like search through and look at to get a good sense of your
Correct.
style and what
So,
you're all about?
yes. So if I'm, for example, a landscape photographer, that's my niche. But I need to be able to have, for example, some detailed shots, maybe some street shots, some kind of environmental portraits. I know that a lot of people are nervous about photographing people, and I have a whole
Mm,
course coming on that. But just having like at least 6 different and maybe some low light, or nightlight, just so that people can you give the editors options as well. And it doesn't have to be more than 10 in each of those categories, especially if you're a landscape photographer, but at least there is some options,
mhm.
so that when they are creating a spread and they're talking about, the destination, they could lead with your landscape, but then have something else that can show a bit more of a cohesive story, right? Because the thing with epic shots is for them to work, you have to load them into like stock agencies, and I'll show you, and as we get further down in the presentation, I'll show you how you can sell your epic shots, because you can sell them.
Mhm.
It's not that you can sell them, but I'm giving you more options on ways to keep selling more work beyond just single images, right? So
Lola, I actually have a question for you too. So, we were talking previously about the Insta repeat Instagram, and how we can see all of those kind of similar, if not identical shots. And I was just wondering if you actually look at stuff like that when you're going to a new place, just as a means of kind of researching almost what not to shoot. So you're
correct.
not, sort of wasting your time doing something that won't potentially sell.
Exactly. I mean, and again, Google is your friend. Just right away, you can Google images from that destination, and you can start seeing what some of the kinds of images are coming, pop up. Instagram as well, just to see. You can still create your own angle and your own vantage point on that, but definitely see what's out there and see how you can create something a little bit different so that you catch the attention of an editor
Mhm.
as well. Right?
Awesome. I think we're ready for part two.
All right, so publications and partnerships. So I'm going to give you a disclaimer before we move into this. And as we always say in Nigerian pidgin English, I didn't send you work, which means get your house in order before you go disturb someone and say Lola sent you. So this section, let's see, I'm going to give you 5 tips for selling your photos. And these are just 5 from over 20 tips I give in the course. So these are just 5. The first one is, yes, of course, you want to find the right photo editor to create a relationship with. I'm actually surprised and amazed by how many photographers don't use LinkedIn. Most of them are on Instagram because, yes, Instagram is a wonderful visual kind of platform for showcasing your work, but people don't like you sliding into their DMs on Instagram. It doesn't feel professional. But on LinkedIn, it already creates a more professional vibe and platform where you can connect with somebody and then don't like bug them right away, but at least connect or find the right editor, as well as Twitter. You can follow people there, see what they're sharing, what they're engaging with. And this is also very frustrating for a lot of photographers because they could keep searching for photo editor of the publication they want, but nothing comes up because the photo editor may be called art director, layout editor, director of photography, head of art direction, lead designer. Sometimes they're not actually called photo editor. So, so the first tip is finding them, online, mostly to Twitter and LinkedIn. That is how I go to find them. And then I don't email them right away. And again, when I say engage organically, you have to be authentic. Engage organically, see what they are sharing, comment, not just to try and get on their radar, but if it's actually information that is relevant and you care about, engage, retweet, just show that you're following them and that you're seeing what they're sharing. And this is why it's important because When you then email a few days later, there is some subconscious recognition, right? Because editors get lots of emails. They ignore them. But if you follow them or you've been interacting for a few days, your name sounds familiar. If I see somebody email me and the name sounds familiar, I'm probably going to click at least the email to see what's going on in the email. So that's what I call my little three-step introduction. And please do not go bug any editors and and just bug them. But this is a great way, to kind of start getting on the radar of the people you want to reach. And this is an example. Oh,
and Lola, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to let everyone know also that we are recording this. So, if you are kind of quickly writing notes down, feel free to wait and we can certainly show you the recording afterwards because she's got a lot of really helpful tips. So apologies, I didn't mention that earlier. Feel free, Lola.
Yeah, no worries. And so, yeah, just a simple search, on LinkedIn, photo editor, National Geographic comes back with over 4,000 results. And that's because it covers various countries, various, variations of the magazines, its platforms, its partners, National Geographic Channel, everything. So it's a great place to see and find people, right? At the magazines or the publications or the brands you want to work with. And this is just for demo purposes. Do not go bug those 4 editors. Please leave them alone. Just leave them alone. It's for demo purposes. So the point of this tip is, again, be respectful, be professional, don't be a pest, but you can really reach out to the right editor that way by finding them mostly on LinkedIn and Twitter. That's one tip. Second tip, photo essays. This is why the one random epic shot doesn't work, because there's still lots of magazines, both travel and non-travel magazines, that love publishing photo spreads, right? So even a food and wine magazine or an architecture magazine loves to publish photography from like travel photography, and they do multi-page spreads. So it doesn't have to be a travel publication. It doesn't have to be the National Geographic. It doesn't have to be the Condé Nast or the Travel and Leisure. You can do this for larger paying magazines, but also that's why you need a cohesive set of images that you can sell, not beyond the one epic shot. And so, for example, this is Vice. I had a photo essay with them, and Vice is not, it's just a kind of like a social culture magazine. It's not travel related, but you can still leverage a lot of your existing archives and sell them with different publications. And that's why it's important to have those cohesive stories as well. Yeah, so again, this is a spread I did for National Geographic Traveler on Greenland, UK, the UK version on Greenland. Again, just having those cohesive stories. And my specialty is people, so of all these photos, it's just the one kind of shot, of the person in there, but at least the rest shows a lot more, can tell a lot more of a story about the destination. And then this is I call it my insider tip, because once you've connected with the photo editor, and if you do get a response, how you connect with them is just introduce yourself lightly. Say, I'm a photographer, this is a link to my portfolio, my image bank. And then say, if you have a call out list, can you please add me to your call out list? Because many of these publications actually have a call out list, a mailing list of photographers where they send like blanket emails like a couple times a month saying, hey guys, I'm looking for photos from Tanzania or hotels in Texas or cityscapes of London. They list everything they need. And then they ask you to submit. Because most publications don't have budgets to send anybody on fresh assignments. So they actually exist on your existing archives of photos. And so a lot of these publications, when you do that intro to the photo editor, just say, do you have a call out list? And if you do, please put me on it. This is a link to my portfolio for you to review. And then you get this email saying, hey, does anybody have photos from here? Does anybody have photos from Sweden? And so I've gotten a lot of publications that way as well. Because then you can quickly, again, with an image bank, quickly create a nice gallery for them, send them a link with a password, and they can download. Easy for you, easy for them. And the easier you can make the life of the photo editor, the more they'll like you as a photographer to work with. So.
Lola, quick question for you.
Yeah,
Do you make a
yes.
lot of cold calls? Do you make a lot of cold calls through like email and phone call to like publications and editors? Or you kind of build that relationship like
Yeah,
you're talking about?
so what I do is especially, for example, if I want to establish myself as with regional expertise saying, oh, I'm a photographer based in Sweden, I find the editor, I interact a little bit and then just a short introduction email saying, this is who I am. I'm in this region. If you're looking for photographs from here, I'm happy to, and I can up around the Nordics and the Baltics on short assignments. So that's how you introduce yourself. I do it via email. I don't call anybody by phone. People,
Mhm.
it can really irritate a lot of people, even though I'm somebody that I'm like old school. I love talking on the phone, but people don't like that. But again, email, short, do not attach anything. It's going to go straight to spam. They don't know you, but just a
Mhm.
link to your portfolio, introducing who you are and saying, hey, I'm available. If you have a call out list, put me on it. If you're covering this region, I'm in this region. Boom. So
Cool.
that's how I do it.
And I would imagine also that when you do have this call out list, you're on it, you're going to want to make sure that everything is searchable in your archive so you can find that stuff. So you want to make sure that if you went to Tanzania, you tagged Tanzania, when you were editing and that kind of thing, just so you don't have to go through your file structure to try and find stuff.
Exactly. And that's like a whole other webinar on how to actually organize your work, but I mean, with my galleries, I organize them by country and then by kind of sub-region within country and then cities. And then they have themes, like I showed you with Mauritius. And most of those folders have the same name. So markets is the same in Sweden, markets is the same. So I kind of organize it that way, markets and people and lifestyle, food, dining, so that it's easy for me as well to just go straight and send and customize, right? So tip number 4 is, so many photographers, we all have photos in stock agencies as well. I have some in Getty Images. I'm repped by National Geographic Image Collection, so I have about 800 photos in there. And stock agencies, you can sell some of your photos, but it's a numbers game, right? So you have to have thousands of photos in there. You have to make them royalty free, so that you can sell in bulk. And it can be a very frustrating way to sell your photos. And so one of my favorite ways of selling photos is to tourism board image banks. And so most of the tourism boards, I mean, think about it. You've got over 180 countries. Many of those countries have image like tourism boards or destination marketing organizations. Within those countries, they've got regions and states and cities all have their own different agencies down to the city level. So you've got thousands of opportunities to sell your images to different tourism organizations. And so the difference between selling your work to a tourism board image bank is they want to be able to share your photo for free, to have your photo to be downloaded for free by people, mostly publications and brands or journalists that want to write about the destination. You retain the copyright. You can sell the same photo to as many people as you want. They usually pay a lot higher per photo. So for example, the same photo that may sell for $5 in like a stock agency, could be sold for 500 to the image bank. So if you sell like 10 to them, that's already $5,000. And what that does is they give you the photo credit listing will be your name and then the name of the image bank. So for example, if the Wall Street Journal wants to write some photos about Sweden, like write an article about Sweden, and they've got the tight budget, they can go to Sweden's official image bank, look for photos, and then publish those photos, and they're going to credit me Lola Akinmade Åkerström / Visit Sweden. Copyright still remains with me. I can still sell the same image to somebody else. It just means I'm granting Sweden a license to offer it for free that way. And so I've done this for many image banks, with Greenland as well, is an example, with Kraken Destinations as well. And that is a destination that is 2 regions in Sweden, 5 in Finland, all marketing themselves together. We built this image bank for them from scratch, which means lots of photos in there, as well that they bought. let's see, Costa Brava Tourism, Spain, sold some to them. And this is the best part. I get the publication credit too, right? Because technically the Wall Street Journal then publishes, if they put that credit, my photo was published by them. So that's what can also help you get those additional bylines. Turn on Google Alerts with your name so that you know. That's how I found out that my photos have been in Vogue Italy, online, or like publications, all over the world, because they get them from these image banks. They credit you properly, and then you just get the byline credits because, yes, technically the publication didn't pay you directly, but you've already been paid by the image bank. So that's a great way of kind of selling your work, but also marketing and getting your name out there so that your name spreads. Right? So it's a good tip, and they pay much more than stock agencies. And then one of the things I say is you can also collaborate beyond those single images. So for example, that's where you can sell a lot of your epic shots, to the image banks of these destinations. But then now you've already created a relationship. So how can you sell more to them beyond just those images in their image bank? So that's kind of how my relationship with Sweden started. When I first moved to Sweden, I was taking lots of pictures around the country, and I just kept tagging them on Twitter and bugging them, just like, oh, this is it, visit Sweden, tag them, or the Swedish Institute tag them, and then they were like, who the heck is this Nigerian girl, like, just tagging us traveling around Sweden, like, what's going on, And so they saw my work, and that's how I ended up being Sweden's photo blogger for 2 years, and I got paid monthly to publish like maybe 3 blogs a month, photo essays showing different parts of the country through my own eyes, the kinds of images I want to show that show my strengths as a travel photographer. So that is something, think about it, so many destinations right now, especially with the lockdown or with travel restrictions. As a photographer, you can actually reach out to your local tourism board and say, hey, how can I collaborate? Is there something we can do? Can I maybe create some, like, take over your channels, go around, create some photo essays, show this is how the destination is now looking, and getting ready for travel next year. So there are ways you have to be audacious, and kind of take that extra step as a photographer. Once you've got the lifeline, just kind of drag it and then see how you can get in and create tighter partnerships. Same way, local restaurants or companies, local tourism, see, okay, what can I do? How can I sell some of my images? These are my archives. Is there anything from here you would like to help sell, your product? Let's see. And then it's the same for, what I call, like Instagram takeovers. I'm not an advocate for just giving your work away for free. But if a big, like a publication says, hey, I want to showcase your work on our Instagram, especially if it's like a National Geographic with like a couple million followers, and just say, hey, I want to show your work. Don't worry about that they're not paying you for that image. Think about all the people that follow National Geographic. Because if your work is being spotlighted by them, then they're saying that's a photographer worth looking into, buying their work, checking out all those big brands, all those big publications and photo editors. So that's what you want to do. So look at it as free marketing for you as a photographer, as long as it's spotlighting you as a photographer. It's saying, hey, our photographer Lola went here. These are some of our images from this assignment or this. So you can reach out to some of your, of the publications that you really want to work with. Again, LinkedIn, look, social media manager or social media, name of publication, because if you pop into their DMs, they've got millions of followers. That's not going to work. So these are just some of the, Instagram takeovers, for Greenland, for National Geographic Traveler, let's see, Lonely Planet, Adventure.com. It's a great way to spotlight and showcase your work because of the people that follow those accounts. Those are the ones that will reach out and want to buy your work as well. And then let's see. So again, just to kind of wrap this up, the benefits of my image bank, just having my website didn't get me far enough. It was my image bank that has been able to help me sell a lot of photographs, because I've been able to quickly create links to galleries on the fly, and send to editors and send to people that really want to check out the work. It feels like a one-stop shop for them as well. They can quickly see, oh, these are all your galleries, or these are all your photos from like West Sweden, and you've got lots of different kinds of lifestyle scenes as well. And then you customize it for each of them. You tailor it for them, and then it makes them feel like you're actually taking time to really, listen to their needs and tailoring it. And all this takes like 5 minutes. It doesn't take long, depending on what they're asking for. So, so those are kind of 5 quick tips, that you can start using right away, because many of us are sitting on archives and archives of travel photographs, and we can actually start selling them right away, at least getting them, in front of the right people. And so these are just 5 tips from over 20 in my course. And because you guys are, listening in to me drone on and on, I'm giving you a 25% discount that expires by the end of the month. So, and I think Caitlin and Jeremy are going to share the link, once they send out the on-demand video. But yeah, so let's see. Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, thank you. So if you got questions, I am here for you.
Yeah, Jeremy, I think, is going to probably share quite a few questions. Lola, I had a quick question for you. I was just wondering when in your sort of career you went from thinking of your website as, a website or just an online portfolio to the sort of image bank approach. Was that sort of early on and you had success, or is that a more, recent approach that you've taken?
It was early on, because I realized that I couldn't get everything quickly. So like when somebody was asking me for something, I couldn't get everything quickly off my computer and try to, upload all these images, to WeTransfer and try to get it to them. And I felt like I wasn't working in a smart, efficient way, and so I started, and I don't even know when I found PhotoShelter, but it's been a couple of years now, since I've been like on the platform as a professional, user on the platform. But it was when I realized there has to be a smarter way of getting this galleries, this sample of work to the people asking for it. And that's when, and that's for me was when I started thinking, okay, there has to be kind of a way of sharing it better, online. And I know in the past when there used to be Flickr and all that, it just felt like it wasn't enough, I needed something else that felt just more comprehensive, where I could upload. And even my image bank right now, it's just like 40% of my images. It's still a big task of trying to get everything on, online. So yeah.
Definitely. Well, wonderful. Thank you again so much for sharing those 5 tips. We probably will do about 10 minutes of Q&A, kind of depending on the amount of questions we got, Jeremy. So if you want to just start asking Lola some of the ones that you think would apply most to the audience, feel free.
Yeah, I wrote down some good questions while we were talking here. The first one I want to know about, which a couple people asked about, are, and I guess it depends on the situation, the publication, but any like tips for pricing models or licensing and fees? Like people are curious about pricing, and I know it's more of it's like a personal thing sometimes, and it's definitely dependent on a couple different variables. But any tips there would be great.
Yes, I mean, I get this question a lot too, and there are many calculators online. I know there's like the Getty Images, image calculator that people use as well. Most of the time, a lot of publications already have their fixed fee, especially if you're publishing like a photo spread. They have just, this is what we pay. But what you can always do is say, okay, do you have any wiggle room? That's actually how I also say, especially if it's just like a multiple page spread, because editorial budgets are not the biggest, where the money comes is usually more on the commercial side, working on campaigns or working with commercial brands. But if you're thinking editorial prints, not very big budgets, but you can always ask them, okay, is there any wiggle room, and see what they can do to get you more, money for that photo spread. So.
Awesome. I have a question about timelines in relation to 2 different things. So someone asked, how long do you typically license your photos? for to these publications or image banks? And then when you're showing your work, how far back do you typically go before it's like too deep in your archive? Like, you're showing work from 3 years ago, a travel that you took 3 years ago. Is that too far back? Like, what's your timeline for those two things?
Correct. So let me take the second question first.
Sure.
And that's actually something I talk about in the course is regularly going through your archives and clearing them out. Because when you, especially if you're like, like a street photographer, like the cityscape changes. So it no longer is a valid photo of the cityscape. And so my tip I usually give photographers that do street is if you want to sell a lot of that kind of work, try and stick in the areas where you know the zoning wouldn't change the cityscape. So for example, the old towns or the protected areas or the UNESCO's, that cityscape isn't going to change unless there's like a crane, like fixing a building, but those cityscapes don't really change, so that is one way to kind of create some evergreen images, tip for the future. And then for your archives, a lot of things can still go back 10 years, you can still sell, especially if there are things like detailed shots of food or things like that. People sometimes, people die, people grow up, but it depends on the context, editorial. So some of those things, I would say maybe every 5 years, just go through and see what you feel like is getting outdated and take them out. I have been very terrible at this. I just throw them all up there. So I need to go back in and clean out, So even my terrible photos from 10 years ago are still in my image bank. I need to clear them out. But that is, just kind of doing it yourself. And then in terms of licensing, I think each of them come with different terms. So for example, a lot of these image banks, they just want that image to be in there for like maybe 5 years or even for the span of the life of the image bank. That's fine. If you don't want it, then just negotiate terms and say, I want it in for like a year, and that's it. And then the price is probably going to change because then it's not going to be as much per image, And remember, even if the image is in their image bank forever, it doesn't take a, you still own the copyright. You can still sell the image for, to different publications, it doesn't restrict the sale of the image. It is now when you're trying to sell it to somebody else that wants to do a rights grab, that's where the problem is. And then they want you to take it out of that image bank. So I think image banks for the destinations, again, they're not out to grab all your rights. It's just more, can I please use these photos to promote our destination? So when journalists are looking for images, they can use it. You get the byline, you get the credits, and they usually pay more per image. And you still retain all the copyrights and you sell it, as well. So
awesome.
I think that answers both questions. Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I have a question here. When you're doing travel work, I know a lot of it is like you're traveling and then you have a bunch of photos and then you think about how to pitch and publish. But are you ever compensated for travel when you're going to travel and take photos? So do any publications or anything like that pay for your flights and food and lodging when you're going to do travel photography?
Sometimes, but very rarely. And a lot of publications are okay with you working with the local tourism board so that the tourism board brings you to then do that. So they can cover your flights and allow you. And I know a lot of people are like, well, especially on the travel writing side where sometimes they don't want press trips. Well, it's very different for travel photographers because you're just taking photos of the destination. You're not actually putting words or saying, oh, I love this destination. I'm just taking the photo. So it's actually easier as a travel photographer to get the tourism board to bring you in and cover kind of the expenses and support you with an assignment letter from the publication as well. So to kind of offset costs because the publications don't really pay that much, and so they are more willing to allow you to work with a tourism board to bring you and compensate on the travel side.
That actually brings me to another question I wrote down, which is, do you ever write travel stories alongside your work?
Yes, I do. And I think when I wear my travel writer hat, that has actually worked in my favor because then I'm a one-stop shop for like a publication. not only can I write the story and write it, in a way that's really authentic and real and deep, then I have the photos to illustrate as well. So that is one of the things I tell travel writers is, if you can at least improve your photography skills, not to put us travel photographers out of jobs, but at least if you can improve your photography skills, then, you can be able to sell both. Or one of the tips in my course is collaborating, with a travel writer, so that once you know the travel writers and their beats in your region, then you introduce yourself as a photographer to them. And that's also how I've gotten some work is, knowing these are the travel writers in the regions, these are their beats, and then I let them know, hey, my archives, I've got archives from this region. If you're selling the photo, the story, I can provide the photos. That's another free tip from the course.
That's awesome. Lola, can you go back a slide so people can see the link and the promo code? Because you're giving great tips and we want people to sign up to learn more from you.
Yes.
That's awesome. One thing I was thinking about, and a lot of people always love to hear about this, and especially it's an interesting topic for someone who's traveling, but can you talk about any of your go-to gear, especially for someone who's taking it abroad or moving along and, traveling about?
Yes. So I'm a Nikon girl. I use a Nikon, and right now I use a 750, and planning on upgrading as well. And I do have a backup Sony, but I'm usually a Nikon, and then I usually take 3 lenses with me because I'm trying to travel light, and I also want to try and bring a different range of photos back. So the 3 lenses I usually take are my 14-24 wide angle lens, Nikon wide angle, because then I can get those landscape shots, those interior kind of shots. And then I take my 24-70, which I call my kind of everyday street lens. You can get right into the action as well. And that's what I call, again, street. And then I take the 50mm fixed, then I can get, food or portraits or things like that. So those 3 I usually put, when I travel with me. And yeah, so that's my game. But I am definitely in the in the process of trying to upgrade and take things out and reshuffle my gear and try different brands too. So yeah, we'll see.
Lola, do you also have a go-to camera bag? I know especially ones that lock and things like that when you're traveling are fairly important.
Yes, so I do use like a low pro backpack I use, and then I have I don't have it here, I could have shown you, but just one that's really nice, like it looks like a nice little purse, but then bring out a camera, so they don't say come in. No, but yeah, that the low pro backpack, and then when I go out, then I have like a smaller bag that just feels, like I feel like I'm a local walking. People wouldn't know I'm a, like I'm a photographer. That it just feels nice and elegant, and I blend in as well. So.
We have a couple of people who've asked that. I wouldn't want to skip it. If you watermark your images.
So with watermarking, the great thing with Photo Shelter is you can actually turn it on and off depending on the gallery, right? And it's not actually not on the image itself. It just kind of shows it so that when they do download it, the watermark is not on the image. In the beginning, I was watermarking a lot, and I still do, but it's just because it's part of my gallery setting, as opposed to, so I don't know. I think if people want to steal your photo, they're going to steal it anyway, but so that's why it's nice to put your work in a system where you can just turn it on and off, and it has nothing to do with the image itself. I can say, what, I don't feel like watermarks today, I turn it off. My gallery is watermark free, but yeah, so.
Good to know. One thing that we've been focusing on at Photo Shelter a lot lately is SEO. And I know we briefly touched on keywording a bit before, but we've had a couple of people ask about like your process for SEO and keywording and having people find your work in those ways. Correct. Any tips or thoughts about that?
Correct. So I do put like, keywords, some basic keywords. I am still crap at it. I could still be even detailed to the color, like level. but I usually put, city, location, state, if it's culture, lifestyle, food, tradition, like I kind of put more kind of high level keywords, so that when people search for, Yokmok market, then those words kind of pop up. But I'm sure I could be even better, like at the granular, level in terms of adding more nuanced keywords. But yes, that is how they find you. You need to put at least some basic locations, some basic what's going on in the shot, and the keywords are actually more important than even the caption. It's just so people know what's going on, and then they can come in, and then they can reach you, and ask for the photo. So.
Mm-hmm. Great. We had one question about I guess the existence of more and more drone photography and video when it comes to like travel portfolios. Do you dabble in those? Do you see demand for those? What are your thoughts on drone and video in a travel portfolio?
Correct. I mean, I think I do video. I do shoot video as well, but I haven't used the drone much, and mostly it's just a personal preference thing because my beat as a travel photographer is people. I need to be in somebody's face, so I haven't really spent a lot of time with drones, and not because, and that's mostly because of personal preference. I do not have the energy to be carrying it around and then fiddling with that. There are people that have more time, to do that. So I leave that up to them and then kind of focus on my own niche. But yes, drone is great. The destinations are always looking for that kind of shot as well. But also remember, it's very easy for somebody to just take an aerial view. It doesn't say who you are as a photographer, and if you take a drone shot, you don't want to end up on that Insta repeat site because then it's all drone shots from the same location. So that's about finding your visual voice as a photographer. So if you feel like you can create your visual voice as a photographer through drones, and there are many amazing photographers that have done that with drones, actually, maybe kind of really cool compositions, or they see that and then they repeat that somewhere else, and then they create a gallery of just cool kind of patterns, So it's about finding your visual voice and why you're using the drone, so that then your work is unique, and then you can buy it. Otherwise, then all that drone work is going to go into image banks or like stock image, agencies, or actually a great drone agency I love is called vreel.co, vreel.co, and they actually sell lots of drone imagery. So you can put those in there as well, and then get some, you can use it as a way to sell your drone kind of footage as well. And I actually buy from that because I do some videography and working with a video editor, we sometimes buy drone shots and then add it into it as well, because I don't have a drone. I don't have time for it. I just buy what I need, stick it in, you got the video out. It's all about efficiency. So that's it.
Very cool.
And maybe we need to think about starting a drone repeats Instagram. It could be a big
that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lola, do you mind saying that website one more time? Just someone asked about that site, the drone site.
It's called vreel.co, and I think it's a Swedish-based company. So it's vreel.co.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, really nice. So I'll send you guys a link later. So yeah.
Perfect. Jeremy, do we have one more question?
You know what? Before we wrap up, let me ask one more. You mentioned your visual voice. You're all about visual voice, and we had a question earlier that I jotted down that I thought was great. Where in your creative workflow or process do you really craft your visual voice? Like, is it when you're shooting? Is it when you're like planning or editing your work? Where does that really? It's probably. I mean, I'm gonna guess it's throughout in various ways. Yes. But yes. What are your thoughts on that?
So it's both. First of all, you need to have something good to work with. It's like trying to build, like try to put icing on like nothing, right? It doesn't work. So what I do is actually I have my own compositional style. When I'm out there, I love isolation a lot. I love framing and ways of kind of capturing scenes. And so I do a lot of the compositional shot, in kind of on location when I'm taking or creating or making the photo. And then when I bring it back, that's when I kind of add my voice. And one of the quotes that I like is a photographer once said something about a photograph and edit kind of how the scene made you feel, not kind of how it looks. And I thought that was really fascinating because then you can edit it in a way that made you feel how you felt in that place. Was it when I was there, was it really like moody and dreary? Then you edit it that way. Then you start bringing some kind of emotion and voice into that shot. So yeah, so the composition definitely in the field, and then when I come back, you know, then I edit, you know, and so that it makes me, so it's part of my visual voice, or the way I see it, you know, kind of as a former oil painter, you know, I do it that way. So
Yeah, I love that you are a former oil painter. That's so special. I think that's it for now. We have some other questions, but I think we're gonna wrap up, and anything that wasn't covered or anything that people missed, we'll kind of try and round up in our Q&A that we post with the recording early next week. So Caitlin, you can wrap it up here.
Sounds great. So, you know, we only saw a very small sliver, I think, of Lola's photos today. So if you want to follow along on Instagram, hopefully, you know, you'll be traveling all over the world again soon. But in the meantime, I'm sure, you know, there are some things from the archive you might be sharing. So you can just follow her at Lola Akinmade. And then Photo Shelter is just at Photo Shelter. Jeremy is constantly updating that with really special photos from our members. I believe this week we're doing a really fun takeover with some women in sports photography. So definitely be sure to check that out. And then I just wanted to let everybody know, again, you know, we've been talking about SEO. There was a huge announcement this week that we, you know, we're kind of a part of. Google Images has some new licensing features that basically allow people, when they do find your work through Google Images, to be able to more easily be able to go over to your website and purchase them. You can see that sort of right here. There's this little badge now. So we've got a really great article on our blog about that. And we also have a step-by-step guide from our general manager, Grover, just about, you know, how to set that up in Photo Shelter and take full advantage of it. And then last but not least, our upcoming webinar is on September 18th. Jeremy and I will co-host that again. And that's going to be with David Bergman. I think it's actually going to be a kind of nice segue from, you know, a lot of what Lola talked about. And it's just about taking photography risks, taking some of those really unique shots, and, you know, really standing out from the pack. I think that that's always been a challenge right now for photographers. So please join us for that. We'll be sending out an invite early next week, and we'll also be sharing Lola's recording early next week on the blog and via email as well. So I think that is it for us. We're at 1 o'clock on the dot. I think that might be a record. And
Nice.
Lola, again, thank you so much for sharing these tips. And everyone, please feel free to check out her amazing, amazing course. I had a little kind of teaser of it, and I cannot recommend it enough. So be sure to check that out.
all right, thank you guys so much, and thanks for dialing in. Thank you.
Thanks,
All right.
Lola.
Have a
Thanks,
great weekend,
everyone.
everyone.